Hey pupil, again, peace. Here we're going to be discussing about the triangles of the neck, the posterior triangle of the neck. What are the triangles of the neck? The triangles of the neck are basically the muscles of your neck which form triangles. To discuss the posterior triangle, which has an occipital triangle and a subclavian or subclavicular, we can look over here. This is the posterior triangle of your neck. As you can see, this is the sternocleidomastoid muscle, this is your trapezius muscle, and this is your omohyoid muscle. This is the superior belly of omohyoid, and this is the inferior belly of omohyoid. The inferior belly of omohyoid divides the posterior triangle into two, which is the occipital part and the supraclavicular part. Supraclavicular, or it is also known as the subclavian part, because the subclavian artery is in its proximities. Now, the occipital part's boundaries are the inferior belly of the omohyoid, the sternocleidomastoid, and the trapezius muscle. And the supraclavicular parts, supraclavicular triangle's boundaries are the clavicle. This is the clavicle bone, as you can see over here. This is your posterior triangle. This is the sternocleidomastoid, and this is the trapezius. Okay, trapezius muscle. This is the triangle, and this is the inferior belly of omohyoid. As you can see, this is your occipital triangle, and this small triangle is your supraclavicular or subclavian triangle. It has the clavicle as its boundary, as its inferior boundary, and the clavicular head of the sternocleidomastoid muscle and the omohyoid muscle. The main muscles that form the floor of the posterior triangle are the splenius capitis, levator scapulae, scalenus medius, and semispinalis capitis sometimes. So you can see over here, these are the posterior, middle, and anterior scalene muscles. They are forming the floor of the posterior triangle. And there's levator scapulae muscle right over here, the bigger one over here, this one. And there is splenius capacitus muscle as well, right over here. Splenius capacitus, levator scapulae, and scalene muscles, as you can see. And the contents that pass through these are, well, there are many, but the main are the spinal accessory nerve that passes through the occipital triangle, the upper one, and the occipital artery, which is the branch of the external carotid artery. These two main, and the four cutaneous nerve branches, these pass through the occipital triangle, the spinal accessory nerve, and the occipital artery. And through the subclavian triangle, that is the lower, this small triangle, we have the three trunks of the main brachial plexus, and we have the suprascapular nerve and the nerve to subclavius. So the highlights are, for the contents, that the occipital triangle has the spinal accessory nerve and the occipital artery and the cutaneous nerves. Occipital artery for the occipital triangle and the spinal accessory nerve. And in the subclavian triangle, trunks of brachial plexus. Oh, by the way, brachial plexus are a bunch of nerves that supply the upper limb, as you can see that I've written over here. And these both also come from the upper trunk of the brachial plexus. So the brachial plexus, the three trunks of the brachial plexus, are the main thing in the subclavian triangle. And we are done over here. Laters.